shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
Here's today's prophecy update. The Iranian agreement has now moved toward full implementation. Over $50 billion will be released to Iran, and long-held U.S. hostages will be coming home. Are the newfound relations between the U.S. and Iran a good thing or bad? The Bible prophesies in the Bible tell us how these things will end up. Ezekiel 38 describes the invasion of Israel by the world community at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. Iran will be one of the main contributors to the international army that will come against Israel. The present strengthening of Iran will simply prepare her to invade Israel at the time of Armageddon. Now, today we want to talk about the present situation in Israel. We know that Israel will be the epicenter of prophetic events as they converge from now till the Battle of Armageddon. And I would remind all of us that it is during the time of Armageddon that the second coming of Jesus to this earth will occur. I don't want to say that too flippantly. We're talking about one of the most dramatic events of all history. The return, the physical return of Jesus Christ to this earth will soon occur. I cannot tell you for certain exactly when it is. We will be able to speak with much more certainty about it soon, because we do have a prophecy with a dateline attached to it. There's a prophecy in the Bible that tells us when the Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement is signed, and it's going to be, this agreement will create a Palestinian state in the West Bank, in the area called Judea, Samaria, biblically speaking. When that peace agreement is signed, it will also put the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement. That will mark the beginning of the final 7 years to the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now think of that. The day that agreement is signed, I'll be coming to this microphone and telling you that you're now 7 years away from the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, I already hear the objections, but wait a minute. The Bible says no man knows the day nor the hour. Yes, Jesus did say that concerning the time that he lived in then. He also told those same people, it's not given to you to know the times and the seasons. He told Daniel the prophecies would be reserved for the people of the time of the end. So when Jesus said, no man knows the day nor the hour, he didn't mean the people of the end time would not know the day nor the hour. He even said at that time that not even the Son of Man knew, only the Father. That's no longer true either. Nevertheless, the important thing is this. You and I live in the end time right now. We're seeing the convergence of everything. However, with all the news, we're all subject to noise pollution. We hear so many things. After a while, if we're not careful, everything will blur. So I want to take time today to stop and reappraise one more time where we are right now concerning Israel, so that we can get a good grip on some of the news we're hearing right now. And we are hearing some critical news right now. So let's begin by doing a little bit of historical background, especially concerning the area of Israel, the land of Israel. Now, the Ottoman Empire controlled the Palestinian area for several hundred years up until World War I. In World War I, British then took control of what was called the British Mandate, the area of Palestine, and Britain controlled it until May the 14th of 1948. Now, it was during this time that there was a lot of conflict between Arabs and Jews. Adolf Hitler was killing every Jewish person he could get his hands on. The Jewish people were running for their lives, and the only safe place that they had was the land of Palestine, eventually to become the land of Israel. The dream had been reawakened in their hearts. They felt like if we can just go home to our homeland, then we can be safe there. So they came, but the British had put a control on the number of Jews that could come into the land of Palestine each year. They were sneaking in. They were coming by night because they just felt like they had to go home. It was the one place where they could be safe. Well, as all this tension built, Britain said, we want out. This is too much for us to handle. In the meantime, the United Nations had been formed in 1945. Well, here we are now in 1947. The UN got together and they decided on November the 29th to pass a resolution. This was November 29, 1947. They passed Resolution 181. This resolution partitioned the area called Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. However, the Arabs said, we will not coexist with Israel. We don't care about a state. We just want to drive Israel out of the Middle East. Consequently, Israel accepted Resolution 181, but the Arabs rejected it. Now, there was time lapse between November the 29th of 1947 and the Declaration of Independence by Israel on May the 14th of 1948. It was during this 6 months or so that there were battles raging between the Arabs and the Israelis. However, the British Mandate officially came to an end on May the 14th of 1948. That's when the British pulled out. Now then, the people of Israel were going to be left on their own to defend themselves against the 42 million Arabs that surrounded them. Well, what were they to do? The British were pulling out. There was no one there to keep the peace. The time had come. They had to make a decision. Therefore, on the evening of May the 14th of 1948, David Ben-Gurion, who quickly became the first prime minister of Israel, made the announcement that Israel was declaring independence and the newborn state would go by the name of Israel. Well, there was no time wasted. The very next day, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon declared war against Israel and launched the invasion, fully intending on obliterating the newborn state before it could even catch its breath. Well, something went wrong because the battle didn't go like the Arabs anticipated that it would, even though Israel only had 600,000 people, so we were fighting against extreme odds, 600,000 to 42 million. Yet somehow when people are fighting for their existence, they fight nobly. Now beyond that, there was the God factor, because it was prophesied in Ezekiel 37, 2,500 years before this War of Independence ever broke out, that Israel would return to its land and would reborn. So God was fighting for Israel. God was fulfilling his promise. Well, after the Arab countries saw they were not going to be able to vanquish Israel from the land, they became weary with the fighting, and a ceasefire was reached in 1949. When the ceasefire happened, Jordan, who had come across the Jordan River, Jordan was left in control of what's called today the West Bank, or biblical Judea, Samaria. They also controlled half of Jerusalem. They controlled the half that contained the Temple Mount and the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. Well, it was at that time that this armistice was struck, and it held for 19 years. However, Abdel Nasser of Egypt began to work to build the strength of his Egyptian army to the point that he could try once again to obliterate the Jewish nation from their midst. Syria was involved. Jordan was complicit with it. Finally, in 1967, Nasser began to make speeches of belligerence and also committed an act of war. He blockaded the Straits of Tiran in southern Israel. These were international waters, and that was officially an act of war. He also ordered the UN troops that had been separating the Egyptian armies from the Israeli armies in southern Israel. He ordered them out, and the UN packed up and left. Nasser moved his Egyptian troops up to replace the peacekeeping troops of the United Nations. Israel realized that the attack was imminent. Rather than just sit there like sitting ducks, on the morning of June the 5th, the Israeli airplanes left their hangars. They slipped out over the Mediterranean Sea, flying only 500 feet above the ground. They kept below radar detection. They swept into Egypt. They caught the Egyptian Air Force on the ground. They destroyed 90% of the Egyptian aircraft in that first strike. The war was virtually over before it could be begun. Well, Egypt nevertheless attacked Israel. Syria attacked from the north, and then Jordan decided they would attack from the eastern part of Israel. Well, Israel had asked Jordan to stay out, saying, if you'll stay out, we won't bother you, but if you attack us, we will counterattack with all of our might. Well, Jordan just didn't feel like they could stay out when their Arab brethren were fighting against the hated Zionist entity. So they attacked, Israel counterattacked, drove them out of Jerusalem, off of the Temple Mount, and all the way back across the Jordan River. This war was breathtaking. 6 short days. Israel conquered all of Judea, Samaria, that's the West Bank area. They conquered the Golan Heights in the north, and they also conquered the Sinai Desert in the south. Well, finally the ceasefire was declared there, and since 1967, there have been many peace negotiations. Now, Israel volunteered to give it all back. If you will just sign a peace agreement with us, we'll give you all the land back. But the Arabs said, we don't negotiate with you, no negotiations, no peace talks, no agreement. Well, that's the way it's been since 1967. Now, finally, there were some peace negotiations that began between the Palestinians and the Israelis. It's happened many times since 1967. All of the negotiations have failed. Yet, the Arabs are still determined to drive Israel into the sea. Today, they use terror attacks to make Israel's life unbearable. They figure if they can keep the pressure up, and they have used a horrible tool. The tool is suicide bombing, terrorism. This time we find ourselves in another intifada. It's called the knife intifada. And it's hardly a day goes by but what we hear of another knife attack. It always ends up the same way. An Israeli or 2 or 3 are killed, and then in return the Israelis kill the attacker. They know when they go out, they're probably not going to come back alive. Nevertheless, the attacks go on day after day after day after day. You're reading about it in your news the same as I am. So all the pressure is on Israel. However, I want to bring you now to today's situation. Where are we right now? And how does this present situation fit in to what the prophecies say is going to come? Now, Europe is Israel's #1 trading partner, and Europe is pressuring Israel to give all the land back that Israel took in the 67 war. Israel says, we can't do that because those are indefensible borders. They leave us 9 miles wide at the waist. Even Resolution 242 from the United Nations recognized that those borders were indefensible. Therefore, they said that new borders should be drawn. This is the UN resolution, that final borders should be determined through negotiation between the two parties. Well, that's been tried repeatedly. Still, it has not worked. Well, now then, Europe, because they are the largest trading partner with Israel, they're trying to put pressure on Israel right now. Now, one of the latest developments is the European Union has passed a resolution attempting to choke out the settlements. Those are the settlements that have been built on the land that Israel took, that Israel intends to keep after the dust clears on the negotiations. This new EU resolution singles out the settlements in an attempt to force Israel to give that to the Palestinians. This article appeared in Israel National News just the 15th of this month, just 3 days ago, and it simply says, new EU resolution singles out the settlements. And I want you to hear what's going on right now. I'm talking about at this present time. Israel's foreign ministry is making last-ditch efforts to block a pending European Union resolution that emphasizes the distinction between Israel proper and the territories it captured during the 1967 Six-Day War, the Haaretz newspaper reveals. Adoption of the resolution could lead to new sanctions against Israeli communities in Judea and Samaria, senior officials in Jerusalem and European diplomats told Haaretz. The resolution is expected to be published on Monday, that's today, at the conclusion of the monthly meeting of the Foreign Affairs Council, comprising the foreign ministers of the 28 EU member states. Now, you do realize that they're closing the trap. I haven't read the news yet about this today, but they're closing the trap on Israel today. Now, before we go on, I want to make sure we all fully appreciate where we are right now. Europe is determined that Israel's going to withdraw from the West Bank. And if Israel doesn't do what Europe says, they're willing to use all their might. I'm talking about the European Union, 500 million people against a small country of 8 million people, of which 1.6 is Arab. So here you have this huge, powerful country that passed the U.S. in trade volume in 2008. And they're determined they're going to come down on the nation of Israel. Now, I would remind you, we know where this is going. We know the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet, will come out of Europe. We can prove it from the Bible. At the same time, Europe is presently experiencing a dramatic rise in anti-Semitism. the Jews are starting to leave Europe. Statements are being made over this weekend that Jews should get out of Europe while they still can. It's 1938 all over again. It's just like the days before the rise of Adolf Hitler. That's where we are right now. As a matter of fact, within the last 2 weeks, there were demonstrations in Europe, and the demonstrators were heard to chant, "Hitler is coming, Hitler is coming." Of course, that would strike fear to any Jewish person, seeing that Adolf Hitler put 6 million Jews to death. It's the same thing. The Bible prophesies there is another Jewish Holocaust coming. So that's the atmosphere that we're in. We know the Antichrist comes from Europe, and now then Europe's already using all of its global power to try to pressure Israel into relinquishing what little bit of land she has. Now you have to understand that Europe, with its present borders, is less than 50 miles wide and about 200 miles long. It's a tiny country. It's about a third the size of Indiana. I'm talking about the whole country. And yet, that little bit of land that they have, I mean, the Arabs have vast lands. If you look at Saudi Arabia, if you look at Iraq, Iran, Turkey, if you look at the great expanse, they have much land. And yet, they're determined to pinch Israel down, because what they want to do is what they've always wanted to do, and that is to totally eradicate Israel from the Middle East. And that's what the Battle of Armageddon is going to be about. It will be an invasion by the Antichrist. The Antichrist will be the prime mover behind the whole thing, coming down to destroy Israel at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. Now that's going to be 7, 8, 9, 10 years from now. I cannot tell you for sure yet exactly how long it's going to be, but we're approaching that time. So when we see these news items, we don't need to be oblivious to where it's all heading. We are in a climactic time, a pivotal time right now, and we're watching these things unfold. We are actually in a prelude to the Great Tribulation right now. Now, we know the Great Tribulation cannot begin for at least 3.5, 4 years, maybe 5 or 6, but we're getting really close. We can already see the pressures building once again in Europe against the Jewish people. And oh, by the way, there are 1.6 million Jews living in Europe right now. Ladies and gentlemen, every single one of them need to get out of Europe as fast as they possibly can. And I'm not the only one saying that. I'm saying it because I understand the prophecies of the Bible. And Daniel chapter 12, verse 1 says, at the times just ahead of us, that Michael the angel will stand up, and there will be a time of trouble against the Jewish people, such as never has been before, no, nor ever again shall be. The same blindness and rabid fury that seized the Germans during World War II is already starting to take over Europe again. And then the same thing is going to happen again. Jesus called the time just ahead the Great Tribulation. And make no mistake, that's where we're headed right now. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to pause right here because I want to tell you what Endtime Ministries is attempting to do. We've started a very special fund called Another Jewish Holocaust Fund. We have made an agreement with the Jewish Agency in Israel that we would like to contribute to get Jews out of Europe and wherever else they are in the world that find them in an unsafe place. And that'll be most of the world except for Israel and probably America. There's about 5 to 6 million Jews outside the safety of the United States and Israel. Every one of them need to get to Israel or to America. We have launched this project. It's called the Israel Project, and the fund is called Another Jewish Holocaust Fund. We want to get them out. Now, we've done something very special. we have produced a new DVD called America's God-Given Destiny. And for every person that contributes $1,000, that's what it takes to fly a Jew out of wherever they are to Israel, put them in an absorption center for 5 months, teach them the Hebrew language so they can assimilate into Jewish society. We can get all that done for only $1,000. Anybody that donates $1,000 to this noble cause, we're going to send you a copy of the DVD, America's God-Given Destiny. We show you not only where America is in the Bible, but America's destiny. And it is explicitly portrayed in the prophecies of the Bible. America has a destiny, and it's entwined with the nation of Israel. Not only will we send you the DVD, but we're also going to send you a letter to the Jewish person that you're going to help, and it will be given to you so we can get your signature. We're then going to present it to the person that you help escape from where they are and to move to Israel. The last thing we're going to give you is a beautiful piece of art, and this piece of art is going to depict the United States of America guarding Israel in the end time, because that is our destiny. I prove it in this lesson, America's God-Given Destiny. So we have reserved this DVD for this very special cause. Now, if you can't do $1,000, we also, for $500 donation, will just give you the physical DVD. That way you can have it. It will contain a beautiful song called America's God-Given Destiny. If you're interested in doing that, just give us a call right now, 1-800-END-TIME, 1-800-363-8463. And I'm going to tell you one more part of this program when we get back from this break, because anybody can get this DVD and everybody needs to get it. I'll tell you how as soon as I return.
This trip was a special experience for me. My study of the Bible has been enhanced after seeing Israel. The guides and planners for this trip did an excellent job of taking care of us. The hotels and furnished meals were top-notch. This is a trip of a lifetime. Sign up and go. Bert from Arizona. Come with us as we walk in the footsteps of Jesus and learn about the end-time story on our Israel Holy Roman Empire tour. The Bible prophesies that the Antichrist and false prophet will come out of the Holy Roman Empire. We will be touring the capital of the European Union in Brussels, Belgium, where the rebirthed Holy Roman Empire was fulfilled. We will also visit the Charlemagne Cathedral in Aachen, Germany, who was the first emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. We will be touring the Hall of the Caesars in Frankfurt, Germany, and much more. When we get to Israel, we will see the Mount of Olives, the Garden Tomb, the Temple Institute, Bethlehem, the Western Wall, the Sea of Galilee, the Mount of the Beatitudes, and more. Irvin and Judy hope you will come with them and experience the Israel Holy Roman Empire tour to share one of their favorite places on earth with you. Call 1-800-END-TIME or go to endtime.com for more information.
If your radio station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com to continue to listen to today's broadcast.
Now, in order not to leave anybody out, because we feel like this new DVD, some people are saying it's the best thing we've ever produced here at Endtime Ministries. And we don't want anybody to be left out. You may not be able to contribute $1,000 or $500. As noble as that is, perhaps you just can't do it right now. If you can, please do it. But if you cannot, we want you also to have access to this new DVD. So for a donation of any amount, we're going to send you a password that will allow you to download America's God-Given Destiny. All you have to do is go to endtime.com, click on the donate button, and you're going, once you enter the amount of your donation, you will receive a page that will come up at you, and your password will be there. You can use that to download America's God-Given Destiny. We want the whole world to see this. So we're serious when we say any amount of donation, you will get your password for America's God-Given Destiny. Do the best you can, of course, because this cause is a huge and critical cause. Israel is headed as straight toward another Holocaust as they can go, and it kills me. My instinct is, surely they've suffered enough. But not one Jewish person has to be hit by this if they will listen to the prophecies of the Bible. Every single Jewish person that will listen to the warning from the Bible, they will escape and they will be safe during the time of this coming Holocaust. By the way, beside giving, please pray for the Jewish people and pray for Endtime Ministries that we can get the word to everyone. We've already donated considerable to the Jewish agency. We're working with them, but we want to do much, much more. I wish we could do $1 million today toward this cause, because $1 million would allow 1,000 Jews to make their way back to Israel. Maybe we'll be able to do a lot more than that before it's over with. So please pray with us about this, because it is a huge and noble cause, and it is so very urgent. Well, just want to make sure that all of you know that this is available to anyone. Anybody can donate something. Hopefully it will be as good as you can do, but whatever it is, we want you to have America's God-Given Destiny. So click the donate button at endtime.com and you will receive your password to be able to download America's God-Given Destiny. Let's get back to our article. According to European and Israeli diplomats who have seen the latest draft of the resolution from the European Union, these are its main points. The draft stresses the distinction made by the EU between Israel and the settlement, saying the EU will continue to unequivocally and explicitly make the distinction between Israel and all territories occupied by Israel in 1967. Now, they emphasize that because that includes Jerusalem. Israel reunited Jerusalem, and in 1980, Israel annexed Jerusalem. But Europe says, oh, no, you don't, because all territories occupied in 67, they're trying to drive Israel back to 67 borders, which are indefensible, which will set Israel up for total annihilation. You can't defend a nation 9 miles wide at the waist in this day of supersonic jets. You won't even have time to hit the snooze button on your alarm when the attack goes off. It's going to be that critical. So Israel says, we can't go back there. Europe says, you must, because we're going to put you under ever-increasing sanctions until you do. Now, the European Union agreements with the state of Israel are only applicable to the state of Israel. This is part of the resolution. The EU and its member states are united in their commitment to ensure full implementation of existing EU legislation and agreements applicable to settlement products. The EU reaffirms its decision to label products from Judea and Samaria, that's the occupied territories. They're going to label them all, and it's going to say settlement on them, the way I understand it, so that anybody in Europe, when they see settlement, they can choose to boycott it. Now, they go on to say in this resolution that they don't consider this a boycott of Israel, which the EU opposes. They oppose the boycott of Israel, but they say that's not Israel. Now, they go on to say that the draft continues according to the text released by Haaretz. The draft says that the EU will consider taking steps to save the two-state solution. Now, what they're saying is the two-state solution is not working because Israel will not give the Palestinians everything they want. And so this particular resolution is designed to pressure Israel to bow the knee and give the Palestinians everything they want. That means return to 1967 borders. The article goes on to say the EU will continue to closely monitor developments on the ground and their broader implications, says the draft. The EU will consider further action to protect the viability of the two-state solution, which is constantly eroded by new facts on the ground, because now there's 800,000 Jews living across the 1967 borders. Now remember, who did that land belong to before the 67 war? Well, it originally was part of the British Mandate. They tried to turn it into an Arab state, and the Arabs said, no, thank you. They flatly rejected Resolution 181. They attacked Israel. Israel counterattacked and took land that the Jordanians had occupied during the War of Independence in 1948. So they took land that Jordan had occupied. It was not Palestinian land. The whole thing was called Palestine, but everybody who lived there were called Palestinians, including the Jews. So Israel finds themselves in possession. The UN said nothing while Jordan was occupying this land for 19 years, but as soon as Israel gets it, oh, we can't have that. All right. Now, continuing on with this article, it backs France's suggestion that an international support group be established to promote the Israeli-Palestinian peace process and to convene an international peace conference in order to restart regional, multi-sided negotiations between Israel, the Palestinians, and the Arab states. Now, the prophecy says it this way: the Antichrist will confirm the covenant with many. The covenant is referring to the Abrahamic covenant. God promised to Abraham in Genesis 15:18 that the land that Abraham lived on at the time, which was Israel, would be his and his descendants after him forever. So now then they're saying we want an international peace conference where we can pressure Israel to do what we think Israel has to do. The article goes on to say officials in Jerusalem stress that acceptance of the resolution in its current form would lead to severe consequences and could bring about increased sanctions against Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. As noted in the draft resolution itself, it follows the EU's recent decision to label Israeli products from Judea, Samaria, and the Golan Heights as settlement products. The EU's foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini, recently reiterated that the EU will not drop its labeling, stating the EU is united on these technical guidelines on the indication of origin, and continue to insist the labeling plan is in no way a boycott. That's laughable. I mean, if you put settlement product and then don't think that that's going to result in boycott of those products, well, they know better. The world knows better. Continuing on, many experts have warned that the labeling is only the first step leading to a total boycott of Israel, particularly given the active role of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions boycott groups in getting the labeling passed. BDS was actively involved, pressuring Europe to do this. Boycott, divestment, and sanction is what that stands for, and that's a movement that was started by the Palestinians and is now being pushed around the world to get everybody in the world to boycott, divest, and sanction Israel, and they've been one of the prime movers behind this new resolution by the European Union. Following the labeling decision, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu instructed the foreign ministry to reassess its involvement with European institutions regarding the political process with the Palestinians in the wake of the labeling decision. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we find ourselves right now. We find ourselves with Europe, which presides over 500 million people, 28 nations. They've now bound together. They've signed a constitution. They are virtually the United States of Europe now. And they're as strong economically, as a matter of fact, stronger than the United States of America. They fully intend to bring the full weight of their power down on Israel. Furthermore, President Obama also is pressuring Israel to withdraw to 1967 borders. He said it in one of his speeches. He did allow for certain land swaps in order for there to be Jewish population centers that would not have to be withdrawn from. But the pressure is coming from America, from Europe, from the entire world down on Israel. Israel is isolated and pretty much standing alone right now. Now, we're going to be taking your calls right now and in the next segment of the program. The number to call to be on the air with me, 877-END-TIME, 877-363-8463. And I just want to say to all of you, in case you haven't noticed yet, we're in the heat of a presidential election. And on the Republican side, there are many there who claim that they will be Israel's steadfast friend. Now, according to the Bible, that's America's destiny. I prove all of that in the America's God-Given Destiny DVD. And you need to hear it, because if it's America's destiny, it's your destiny if you're listening to this program from American soil right now. So, since we know that that is true, we need to elect a person that will not just be friend to Israel in word, but in fact. Because the world is isolating Israel right now. And they're going to choke her down. The Bible says, according to Zechariah 14:2, all nations will come against Jerusalem to battle. Now that's a general statement, but yet in America's God-given destiny, I show you that there will be 3 nations at least that will oppose the reign of the Antichrist and will resist and not participate in the one world government. I believe one of those nations is going to be the United States of America. In this DVD, I explain straight from the Bible why I believe that's true. Israel's the other nation, Jordan's the other nation. So all I'm saying is we need to be very humble before God. We need to be very prayerful at this pivotal time. And you need to know that whoever you vote for in this coming election will be steadfast, unmovable in their loyalty to the nation of Israel. The rebirth of Israel is prophesied in the Bible. It's an act of God. Europe, with its antichrist, anti-God concept, is exactly against what God is for. But we don't want to find ourselves opposing God himself, which is what they're doing. We want to be steadfast. Don't forget, go to endtime.com, any donation, America's God-given destiny. Who would have thought it, that the Berlin Wall is right there in the prophecies of the Bible? I'm holding here a chunk of the Berlin Wall. A friend of mine was in Berlin the night that the wall fell, November 9, 1989. He cut a piece of the wall for himself, twice this large. He was kind enough to cut it in half. He had read my book, A Message for the President, in which I had stated 3 years before this that the Berlin Wall would come down, the two Germanys would be reunited, and that would be the event that would mark the beginning of the one world governmental system called the New World Order. Now we're studying right now, how did I know that the Berlin Wall was going to come down? Where is this in the Bible, and how did I know that would be the event that would trigger the New World Order, the one world governmental system?
Go to endtime.com or call 1-800-ENDTIME to order The Berlin Wall in Bible Prophecy.
Jesus said this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all of the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come. This scripture continues to inspire us as we share the Understanding the End Time series with the world. But at one point we faced a problem. Much of the world doesn't speak English. That's why we produced the Understanding the End Time series in the 8 major languages of the world: English, Spanish, French, Italian, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian. Many of you out there helped us make this translation project a reality, and we thank you with all our hearts, because now we can truly be a part of preaching the gospel of the kingdom to all the world. If there's someone in your life that speaks one of these languages and needs to hear the End Time message, get them the Understanding the End Time series, and you too can be a part of preaching the gospel of the kingdom to this world.
Godless, Antichrist Europe is publishing a resolution today against Israel. It's not going to be the end. It's only the beginning. The end is going to be the Antichrist will arise out of Europe. The Bible specifically prophesies it. The Antichrist will arise out of Europe. He will eventually preside over the invasion of Israel at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. I'll tell you this, I know how that battle will turn out. Israel will be on the brink of losing that war. It's called the Battle of Armageddon. And half of Jerusalem will fall when Israel's making its last stand at its capital. Half of the city will go into captivity to the world government armies. And the Lord's going to look down from heaven and see it. And he's going to come from the portals of heaven. The Bible says he will come to the Mount of Olives. He will fight against those nations and the Antichrist. The Antichrist, his religious partner, the false prophet, will be cast into the lake of fire by Jesus Christ himself. Satan is going to be bound at that time. And we're going to crown Jesus Christ King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We are on a straight path right now to the Battle of Armageddon. This news today that Europe is passing a resolution that says, no, Israel, you cannot have what God promised you. Read the promise for yourself. Go to Genesis chapter 15, verse 18. God was speaking with Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham, I enter into covenant with you. It's a strong word, stronger than the word promise. I enter into a covenant with you that the land on which you dwell will be yours and your descendants after you. And then it defines the borders from the river of Egypt in the south to the Euphrates in the north. It defines the borders of the land of Israel. Israel has a very small portion of the promised land today, and now the European Union wants to take that part away from her. And in so doing, the European Union is fighting against God himself. The Antichrist will come out of the European Union, so it should not surprise us that the European Union is taking such an anti-God position. Now, that's not all the European Union is doing. By the way, there are open lines if you'd like to call 877 End Time. There's another article. It's entitled EU Funding Dead Sea Road to Help Annex Area to Palestinian Authority. The article says the European Union is funding an unauthorized Palestinian road to the Dead Sea in Area C of the West Bank to help annex that area to the Palestinian Authority, said the non-governmental group Ragavim. At present, the road is designed to be an access route from homes in the Palestinian village of Tekoa to nearby agricultural lands. Some 8 kilometers of the road have been laid out in preparation for the pouring of cement. But Ragavim has charged that it is just the first phase of a much larger infrastructure project. It's like a snake that's hiding in the grass, said Oved Arad, who is in charge of Ragavim's land division. We're talking about what will be a highly strategic road, Arad said. When a road like this is built by the Palestinian Authority with EU funding, it allows it, the PA, to rule over a large area in the Judean desert and annex it. This is Promised Land territory. The state of Israel can't afford to give up on this territory, and it certainly can't allow foreign governments to break the law in this way. The European Union is overriding Israeli law, sending money in by way of this NGO, non-governmental organization, building roads for the Palestinians, working to push Israel out of this land. Area C of the West Bank is under Israeli military and civil rule. All construction projects, including roads and infrastructure for the Palestinian villages in that area, must be authorized by the civil administration. So you can see that Europe is determined to impose their will upon Israel. Where were they when Jordan and the other 4 Arab nations invaded to try to drive Israel into the sea? They were no place to be found. But now then, they are ready to participate in snuffing Israel out. It's just like it was under Adolf Hitler. They wouldn't shed a tear if all Israel ceased to exist. As a matter of fact, they're going to preside over Holocaust II, which is prophesied in the Bible. Okay, let's get to the phones. Caitlin's calling from Indiana. Hello, Caitlin.
Hi, Brother Baxter. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for taking my call. Just have a quick question. I have not been able to listen to you as adamantly as I had before the holidays, and I know that it seems like in the last couple of months you've changed your belief. That I know before my husband and I took your class, and you were just hoping that America would be allies with Israel, and this last couple of weeks I've been listening, and it seems like you're pretty sure about it. So I was just wondering what it was that changed your mind, and if you have scriptures that you feel are more clear now, I'd love to know.
Yeah, well, I go into this extensively in the America's God-Given Destiny DVD.
Right, okay.
For a full explanation, you could, of course, go there and listen to that, and we've made that so anybody can do it for any donation, even $1. A person can go there and listen to the DVD at endtime.com. But I will answer your question, Caitlin, and that is in Revelation chapter number 12, verse 14, it explicitly says that the eagle, which is the symbol that God uses to represent the United States in the Bible, the eagle will protect Israel all during the final 3.5 years. Also in Revelation 13, we have a picture of the world government of the end time, of the Antichrist. And the eagle's wings are left off. Every single power that's depicted in Daniel 7, which will be the powers on earth at the time of the second coming, every single power is brought over into the one world government picture of Revelation 13, except the eagle. And we find the eagle protecting Israel from the Antichrist in Revelation 12:14. And those are two of the things. There are other evidences too I go into, but those are two of the main things that have just crystallized in my mind and have become very clear to me what's going to happen in these days just ahead.
Okay, awesome. Real quick on that. Now, I'm not really sure about this, but doesn't the Bible also in the Old Testament, when it refers to the wings of the eagle, it's talking about the Lord? Yeah,
there is one passage in the book of Exodus, and it says, I bore you up on eagle's wings. So it's using that as a metaphor there. However, when you get to Revelation 12:14, we know that America has been Israel's only friend. We have protected Israel. We have used our veto power at the UN 42 times since 1972, and we are continuing to protect Israel even under this administration, which is not very friendly to Israel. We're still protecting Israel, and I believe that according to the context, that in fact is referring to the United States of America.
Awesome. It gives me so much hope about this next election. It's so scary right now, and it just it really just gives me so much hope that we're gonna hope, with these, hopefully these, you're right about this, and that we'll get Ted Cruz is what I'm rooting for, really. But I mean, it just seems like we have to get a godly president, and it's with all this stuff taking place right now, and so. Thank you. That gives me so much hope.
Well, thank you, Caitlin. And by the way, that's what everybody's saying about America's God-given destiny. When they're there, they say, Oh, you're giving me hope. I've just about lost hope. But everybody's saying, I'm leaving with hope in my heart because of what that lesson teaches. And so everybody in the whole world needs to hear America's God-given destiny, because I really believe God has opened it up to my heart and mind, and it's something I believe God wants Endtime Ministries to spread to the entire world. So thank you very much, Caitlin. We appreciate
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the phone call very much. I do believe America is more than just a nation. We are in the prophecies of the Bible, Daniel 7. It's so supernatural. It depicts America coming out of Great Britain. That's where we did come out of. Yet the prophecy was given 2,300 years before the birth of the United States of America. And the Bible doesn't stop there. You go to the New Testament, and there are many prophecies that I believe absolutely tell our destiny. Now, before we wrap up here today, about the candidates, who is pro-American? Mike Huckabee is very pro-American. I don't know whether he has any chance to win the nomination or not. Ted Cruz appears to be pro-American to the best I can see. He has said that he will move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Right now, the U.S. maintains its embassy in Tel Aviv, thus signifying we don't recognize Israel's right to Jerusalem. He says he will move the embassy, and he will do it, not just talk about it. I tend to believe him. And then Donald Trump, his daughter converted to Judaism a couple of years ago. She married a Jewish man, and Donald Trump has 2 Jewish grandchildren. So he obviously has a vested interest in Israel, and I'm persuaded that he will also protect. There are others. Now, George Bush has said that he will move the embassy to Jerusalem. However, I have a little problem with that. His brother said the exact same thing. And he said, the day of my inauguration, I will move the embassy to Jerusalem. He was inaugurated twice, never did do it. So I don't know whether that's just an election ploy or whether he really will do it. But I know that Mike Huckabee, almost sure Ted Cruz, and I know also Donald Trump, all will truly stand with Israel. And so that's just some things. There are others as well. I think Rick Santorum probably would. Many of them probably. Beyond that, I cannot tell you for sure, but those are some of those that I do know. Well, listen, we're almost at the end of this program today, but just one more time. Anybody in the world, in the whole world, that would like to hear America's God-given destiny, for any donation to Endtime Ministries, you just go to endtime.com, click the donate button, fill in how much you want to donate, and then you will immediately get your password so you can listen to America's God-given destiny. Why not do it right now? It's a wonderful opportunity to you. So one more time, go to endtime.com, endtime.com. God bless you all. We'll see you the same time tomorrow.
End of the Age is a production of Endtime Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Endtime Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.